The letter slipped from the pages of the worn library book and floated to the floor like a dried autumn leaf, landing face up at Emma's feet with handwriting so elegant it seemed to shimmer under the fluorescent lights. Emma bent down, her fingers brushing the aged paper as she picked it up. The library was nearly empty at this hour, just past 8 on a Tuesday evening. She had grabbed the book without much thought, a collection of Pablo Neruda's love poems, seeking something to distract her from another long day managing the small bakery downtown. The letter was written in blue ink that had faded slightly with time, but the words remained clear and achingly beautiful. Asterisk, my dearest love, I write this knowing I may never have the courage to give it to you. Every day I watch you move through this world with such grace, such kindness, and I wonder if you have any idea how extraordinary you are. You make ordinary moments feel like magic. The way you laugh with your whole heart, the way you see beauty in the smallest things. I am utterly captivated by you. If I could have just one wish, it would be to tell you how I feel without fear of losing what little connection we have. But perhaps some loves are meant to remain unspoken, preserved perfectly in the silence. Forever yours, though you may never know it. Asterisk, there was no signature, no date, no names. Just raw emotion pressed onto paper by someone who had loved deeply and quietly. Emma read it 3 times, her heart aching for the anonymous writer. She turned the letter over, searching for any clue about who had written it or who it was meant for, but found nothing. She checked the book's due date card in the back pocket. The last checkout was from 6 months ago. Before that, the book had barely been touched in years according to the sparse dates. Who leaves a letter like this in a book? Had it been accidental? Had the writer meant for someone specific to find it? Or had they simply needed to release these feelings somewhere, anywhere, even if it meant surrendering them to strangers? Emma carefully tucked the letter into her purse. She would try to find its owner. Someone had poured their soul into these words. They deserved to have them back. The next morning, Emma arrived at Sweet Beginnings Bakery before dawn, as she did every day. The familiar routine of measuring flour, kneading dough, and watching pastries rise in the oven usually soothed her, but today her mind kept drifting to the letter. She found herself wondering about the person who wrote it, imagining scenarios. A shy artist in love with their best friend. A reserved professor admiring a student from afar. Someone who had missed their chance and carried the regret forever. By the time her assistant, Marcus, arrived at 6, Emma had already baked 3 batches of croissants and 2 dozen blueberry muffins. "You are on fire today," Marcus said, tying his apron. "What happened? Did you finally go on that dating app I told you about?" "Absolutely not," Emma said, sliding a tray of cinnamon rolls into the display case. "I found something interesting at the library last night." A love letter tucked inside a book. Marcus raised his eyebrows. "Like addressed to you?" "No, just a letter someone wrote, unsigned. It was beautiful and sad. Are you going to try to find who it belongs to?" "I thought I might post something at the library, see if anyone claims it." The morning rush began, and Emma fell into the rhythm of serving regulars their coffee and pastries, exchanging pleasantries with familiar faces. Mrs. Chen, who always ordered a plain scone and black coffee. Tyler, the college student who studied in the corner for hours with an espresso and whatever was left over from yesterday. The construction crew who bought a dozen mixed items to share at their job site. Around 10, when the rush had died down, a man Emma had never seen before walked in. He was tall, probably in his early 30s, with dark hair that looked like he had run his hands through it too many times, and a tailored navy coat that seemed expensive even to Emma's untrained eye. He had the kind of face that made you look twice, strong jaw and warm brown eyes, but there was something uncertain in the way he stood in the doorway, as if he was not quite sure he belonged there. "Good morning," Emma said with her practiced customer service smile. "What can I get for you?" He approached the counter slowly, studying the display case. "What do you recommend? Depends on what you like. If you want something classic, the almond croissant. If you are feeling adventurous, the cardamom twist. If you want comfort, the cinnamon roll." "You sound like you really care about pastries," he said, meeting her eyes. His voice was deep and a little rough around the edges, like he had not spoken much that morning. "I should. I make them." "You are the owner, baker, occasional janitor." Emma gestured around the small shop. "It is not fancy, but it is mine." Something shifted in his expression, a softness. "I will take the cardamom twist and a black coffee." Emma poured his coffee and plated the pastry. When he reached for his wallet, she noticed his hands. Strong, capable hands with a thin scar across the knuckles of his right hand. "$8.50, she said. He handed her a 10 and told her to keep the change. As he turned to find a seat, Emma called out, "I hope you like it." He glanced back. "I am sure I will." He chose a table by the window, and Emma tried not to watch him, but she found her gaze drifting over several times. He ate slowly, seeming to actually taste the food rather than just consuming it. He pulled out a worn notebook and began writing, his expression focused and distant at the same time. Marcus nudged her. "Stop staring." "I am not staring. You are definitely staring. Go talk to him. He is a customer. I am not going to bother him. You never meet anyone because you hide behind this counter. I am not hiding. I am working." But Marcus had a point. Emma was 28, and her life revolved around the bakery. She woke up before dawn, worked until early afternoon, went home exhausted, and repeated the cycle. She had friends, but they were all getting married and having babies while Emma was perfecting her sourdough starter. The man stayed for almost an hour before gathering his things. On his way out, he stopped at the counter. "That was excellent," he said. "I will be back." "I am glad you enjoyed it," Emma said, and she meant it. After he left, Marcus shook his head. "You did not even ask his name." "Why would I ask his name?" Because he was cute and clearly interested. He was not interested. He was being polite. "Whatever helps you sleep at night, boss." That evening, Emma returned to the library with a handwritten note she had carefully composed. She had decided not to photocopy or share the actual letter. It felt too intimate. Instead, she wrote, "Asterisk found a personal letter in a library book, Neruda poetry collection. If this belongs to you, please contact me with details to verify." Asterisk, she added her phone number and posted it on the community board near the entrance. The head librarian, Patricia, an older woman with silver hair and cat-eye glasses, noticed her posting the note. "What did you find, dear?" "A love letter. Someone must have left it by accident." Patricia's eyes lit with interest. "How romantic. I hope you find the owner." "Me too." Emma browsed the shelves for a while, not really looking for anything in particular. She found herself back in the poetry section, running her fingers along the spines. So many words, so many feelings captured on pages. How many other secrets were hidden in these books? She selected a collection by Mary Oliver and checked it out. As she walked home through the chilly March evening, she thought about the letter again. Asterisk forever yours, though you may never know it. Asterisk, what a heartbreaking line. To love someone so much and never tell them. Emma had been in love once in college. His name was Daniel, and they had dated for 2 years. She had thought they might get married. But after graduation, he took a job in California, and she stayed in their small East Coast town to be near her sick mother. The distance had killed the relationship slowly. By the time her mother passed away a year later, Daniel had already moved on with someone new. Since then, Emma had thrown herself into work. She had opened the bakery with the small inheritance her mother left her, pouring all her grief and hope into creating something beautiful. 4 years later, Sweet Beginnings was thriving in its own modest way. Emma had regular customers, enough income to live comfortably, and the satisfaction of doing something she loved. But sometimes, late at night, she felt the emptiness of her small apartment. The silence that no amount of music or television could fill. The next morning, the man in the navy coat returned. Emma was refilling the display case when he walked in, and she felt an unexpected flutter in her chest. "Good morning," she said. "Back for more?" "Could not stop thinking about that cardamom twist," he said, and there was something in his smile that made Emma's pulse quicken. "But I will try the almond kwasa today. Excellent choice. Coffee, please." This time, as she prepared his order, she worked up the courage. "I am Emma, by the way, Julian," he said, accepting the cup from her. "Nice to officially meet you. Do you work around here? I have not seen you before this week. I am staying nearby for a while, needed a change of scenery." "From where?" "New York." "Born and raised, but it can be suffocating sometimes." Emma nodded. "I went to college in Boston. When I came back here, my friends thought I was crazy for choosing a small town over the city." "Were you?" "No, I like it here. Life moves at a different pace." Julian leaned against the counter, and Emma noticed he seemed less guarded today, more relaxed. "I think I understand that. Sometimes you need to slow down to figure out what actually matters." Before Emma could respond, a group of customers came in and she had to shift her attention. But throughout the morning, she found herself hyper-aware of Julian sitting at his usual table by the window, writing in his notebook. When he left, he waved goodbye, and Emma waved back like an idiot. "You like him," Marcus said the moment the door closed. "I do not even know him." "You want to know him." Emma could not argue with that. Over the next week, Julian became a regular fixture at Sweet Beginnings. He came every morning around the same time, tried different pastries, and always sat at the window table with his notebook. Emma learned small things about him through brief conversations. He liked his coffee black. He was a morning person. He had a dry sense of humor that caught her off guard and made her laugh, but there was also something guarded about him. He never talked about what he was writing or why he was staying in town. Whenever the conversation got too personal, he deflected with a question about her instead. Emma found herself thinking about him at odd moments. While kneading bread at 4 in the morning, she wondered if he was already awake. While walking home in the evenings, she imagined running into him, having a reason to talk outside the bakery. She also checked her phone obsessively, hoping someone would call about the letter. But no one did. The letter remained in her purse, a beautiful mystery she carried with her. One morning, Julian arrived looking tired, shadows under his eyes. "Rough night?" Emma asked as she poured his coffee. "Could not sleep," he admitted. "Too much thinking." "About what?" He hesitated, then said, "About whether I am doing the right thing being here. Are you running from something, maybe? Or maybe I am trying to figure out what I am running toward." Emma slid a cinnamon roll across the counter. "This is on the house. Sugar helps thinking." Julian smiled, but it did not reach his eyes. "Thank you." That afternoon, after closing the bakery, Emma decided to walk through the park. The weather was warming up, and crocuses were beginning to push through the cold earth. She sat on a bench near the pond, watching ducks glide across the water. "Emma." She turned to find Julian standing there, hands in his pockets. He looked surprised to see her. "Julian, hi, do you live near here? I am renting a house a few blocks away, just went for a walk. Mind if I join you?" "Please." He sat down, leaving a respectful distance between them. For a moment they watched the ducks in silence. "Can I ask you something?" Julian said finally. "Sure." "Do you ever wonder if you are living the life you are supposed to live?" or if you are just living the life that happened to you. Emma considered this. I think a little of both. I did not plan to stay in this town forever, but when my mom got sick, I came home. And then after she died, I could not imagine being anywhere else, so I built something here. Is that the life I was supposed to live? I do not know, but it is the life I chose, even if it was not the original plan. Julian nodded slowly. That makes sense. What about you? Is your life in New York what you planned? I have a complicated answer to that, he said, and she could hear the weight in his voice. I have time. He looked at her then, really looked at her, and Emma felt exposed in a way that was both frightening and exhilarating. I work in real estate development, he said. Commercial properties, mostly. My father built the company from nothing, and when he died 5 years ago, it became mine, along with all the expectations and pressure that came with it. That sounds difficult. It is. Everyone wants something from me. Business partners, investors, employees, even family. They see the money and the success, but they do not see how exhausting it is to constantly be what everyone needs you to be. Is that why you came here? To escape, partially. Also to get perspective. I have been making decisions based on what I think I should do rather than what I want to do, and I realized I do not actually know what I want anymore. Emma understood that feeling more than she cared to admit. What did you want, before you inherited the company? Julian was quiet for a long moment. I wanted to write. Fiction, maybe screenplays. I used to fill notebooks with stories, but my father thought it was a waste of time. He needed me in the business, so I set it aside, told myself I would get back to it someday. Is that what you are doing now? In your notebook, trying to. It has been so long, I am not sure I remember how. Well, the fact that you are trying means something. They sat together until the sun began to set, talking about dreams and disappointments, about the lives they imagined versus the lives they had. When they finally stood to leave, Julian walked Emma home, even though it was out of his way. At her apartment building, he paused. Thanks for listening. I do not usually talk about this stuff. Anytime, Emma said, and meant it. That night, she pulled out the love letter and read it again. Every day I watch you move through this world with such grace, such kindness, and I wonder if you have any idea how extraordinary you are. She wondered if Julian saw her that way. If anyone ever would. The next morning, Julian did not come to the bakery. Emma tried not to feel disappointed, but she kept glancing at the door, expecting him to walk through. By noon, she had to accept he was not coming. Maybe their conversation had scared him off. Maybe she had said something wrong. Or maybe he had decided to go back to New York. But the following day he was back, and Emma felt a surge of relief so strong it surprised her. Missed you yesterday, she said, trying to keep her tone light. Had some business calls I could not avoid, Julian said, but I thought about your cinnamon rolls all day. That might be the best compliment I have ever received. As she prepared his usual order, Julian said, Are you free Saturday afternoon? Emma nearly dropped the coffee pot. I close the bakery at 2 on Saturdays. Why? There is an art exhibit at the community center. Photography. I thought maybe you would want to go with me. Are you asking me on a date? Julian met her eyes. Yes, is that okay? Yes, Emma said, her heart hammering. That is definitely okay. The next few days passed in a blur of anticipation. Emma found herself putting extra effort into everything, as if preparing for something important. She deep cleaned her apartment even though Julian would not see it. She tried on different outfits even though she had days before their date. She caught herself smiling for no reason while kneading dough. Marcus noticed, of course. You are glowing. It is disgusting. I am not glowing. You are absolutely glowing. When is the date? Saturday. We are going to an art exhibit. That is so civilized. Are you excited? Terrified, actually. Why? Emma paused in rolling out pie dough. Because I actually like him. What if I mess it up? You will not mess it up. You are smart and kind and you make the best pastries in town. He would be lucky to date you. You have to say that. I pay you. I mean it. Stop doubting yourself. Saturday arrived with unseasonably warm weather, the kind of early spring day that felt like a gift. Emma closed the bakery at 2, rushed home to shower and change, and was ready by 3 when Julian knocked on her door. He wore dark jeans and a charcoal sweater that made his eyes look even warmer. His hair was slightly damp, like he had just showered too. "You look beautiful," he said, and Emma felt her cheeks flush. "Thank you. You look good too." They walked to the community center, a comfortable silence between them. The exhibit featured local photographers, and Emma was surprised by the quality of the work. Landscapes, portraits, abstract compositions. Each image told a story. They moved through the gallery slowly, stopping to discuss pieces that caught their attention. Julian had thoughtful opinions, pointing out composition and light in ways that made Emma see the photographs differently. "Did you study art?" she asked. "Took some classes in college." "I was interested in everything creative, but my major was business, my father's requirement." "You resent him for that," Julian considered this. "Sometimes. But he did what he thought was best. He grew up with nothing and built an empire. He wanted me to have security, opportunity. I just wish he had understood that security is not everything." They stopped in front of a portrait of an elderly couple holding hands on a park bench. The way the photographer had captured the tenderness between them, the decades of love in a single frame, made Emma's chest ache. "My parents had that," Julian said quietly. "My mom died when I was 16, cancer. But right up until the end, my dad looked at her like she was the only person in the world. After she was gone, he threw himself into work. I think building the business was how he dealt with the grief." "I am sorry," Emma said. "I lost my mom too. It is a strange kind of pain." "It is. You never fully get over it. You just learn to carry it." They continued through the exhibit, and eventually the conversation shifted to lighter topics. Favorite books, worst cooking disasters, embarrassing childhood stories. By the time they left, Emma's cheeks hurt from smiling. "Want to get dinner?" Julian asked. "There is a small Italian place a few blocks from here." "I would love that." The restaurant was cozy, all exposed brick and candlelight. They ordered pasta and wine and talked for hours. Emma learned that Julian loved old movies, especially film noir. That he ran 5 miles every morning, which explained his build. That he was terrible at keeping plants alive, but kept trying anyway. She told him about learning to bake from her grandmother, about the year she spent in France during college working at a small patisserie, about her dream of maybe writing a cookbook someday. "You should do it," Julian said. "You clearly have the knowledge and the passion." "Maybe. It feels indulgent, though, like I should focus on the bakery." "Why can it not be both?" Emma had no good answer for that. When they finally left the restaurant, it was nearly 10. Julian walked her home again, and at her door there was a moment of awkward anticipation. "I had a really great time," Emma said. "Me too. Can I see you again? Outside the bakery, I mean." "I would like that." Julian stepped closer, and Emma's breath caught. He reached up, gently tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. Then he leaned in and kissed her, soft and tentative. Emma kissed him back, her hand coming up to rest against his chest, feeling his heartbeat under her palm. When they broke apart, Julian was smiling. "Good night, Emma. Good night." She floated up to her apartment, feeling like a teenager. That night, she pulled out the love letter again and read it with new understanding. To feel this way about someone, this overwhelming tenderness and hope, was both wonderful and terrifying. Over the next few weeks, Emma and Julian fell into a pattern. He still came to the bakery most mornings, but now there were also dinners, long walks, movies at the old theater downtown. They were building something, slow and careful and real. Emma learned that Julian was funnier than he initially seemed, with a quick wit that caught her off guard. That he was generous, always leaving large tips and helping elderly customers with their bags. That he was surprisingly handy, fixing a wobbly table at the bakery without being asked. Julian learned that Emma sang quietly to herself while baking. That she read the last page of books first because she hated surprises. That she was fiercely loyal to the people she cared about, checking in on her regular customers and remembering details about their lives. They did not rush anything physical. There were more kisses, each one deeper than the last, but they took their time. Emma appreciated that Julian seemed content to just be with her, talking and laughing and learning each other. One evening, about a month into dating, Julian cooked dinner at the house he was renting. Emma arrived to find candles lit and music playing, something jazzy and romantic. "You cook?" she asked, impressed. "I have a few dishes I do not ruin," Julian said. "Tonight we are having risotto and roasted vegetables. Simple but hard to mess up." They cooked together, Julian explaining each step while Emma chopped vegetables and asked questions. Being in the kitchen with him felt natural, their movements synchronized without effort. Over dinner, Julian said, "I need to tell you something." Emma's stomach dropped. Nothing good ever started with those words. "Okay. I have not been completely honest about my situation. Are you married?" Emma blurted out. "What? No. God, no, nothing like that." Julian ran a hand through his hair. "It is about money. When I said I work in real estate development, I may have understated things. My company is worth a lot, like a lot. Emma frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means I am fairly wealthy, more than fairly. I did not tell you because I wanted you to know me as just Julian, not as someone with money." "How much money are we talking about?" Julian looked uncomfortable. 8 figures, close to 9. Emma sat back in her chair, processing this. "You are a millionaire." "Yes." "A multimillionaire." "Yes." She was not sure how to feel. Part of her was intimidated. Part of her was confused about why he had not mentioned it earlier. But mostly she was trying to reconcile the Julian she knew, the man who ate cinnamon rolls at her modest bakery and laughed at her terrible jokes, with the idea of someone who had tens of millions of dollars. "Why are you telling me now?" she asked. "Because I care about you. A lot. And I do not want there to be secrets between us. Also because I need to go back to New York next week for a few days, and I want you to understand why." "Business?" "Yes. I have been trying to handle things remotely, but there are some decisions I need to make in person. I will be gone for maybe a week." Emma nodded slowly. "Okay, thank you for telling me. Are you upset?" "I do not know. I need to think about it." They finished dinner in relative silence, the easy intimacy from earlier replaced by tension. When Emma went home that night, she felt unsettled. She called her best friend, Rachel, who lived 2 towns over. "He is a millionaire," Emma said without preamble. "Wait, what? Start from the beginning." Emma explained everything from meeting Julian to tonight's revelation. "So let me get this straight," Rachel said. "You met a handsome, kind, funny guy who treats you well and actually seems interested in you as a person. And the problem is he has money." "It is not a problem exactly. It is just we live in different worlds. What future could we really have? Maybe you are overthinking this." "Does he treat you differently because he has money?" "No. He has been really down to earth." "Then maybe the money does not matter as much as you think. People are who they are, regardless of their bank account." "But what if it does matter? What if he gets bored with my simple life and goes back to his fancy world? What if he does not? What if he actually likes your simple life?" "Emma, You have not let yourself really care about anyone in years. Do not sabotage this because you are scared." After they hung up, Emma lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Rachel was right. She was scared, not of Julian's money, but of how much she was starting to feel for him. It would be easy to protect herself by focusing on their differences, by convincing herself it could not work. But did she want easy? Or did she want real? The next morning, Julian came to the bakery looking nervous. Emma gestured for him to follow her to the kitchen, where they had privacy. "I am sorry about last night," she said before he could speak. "I was surprised and I did not react well." "You have nothing to apologize for," Julian said. "I should have told you sooner." "Why did not you?" "Because when I am with you, I am just myself. Not my father's son, not the CEO, not someone people want things from. I am just Julian, the guy who really likes your cardamom twists and the way you wrinkle your nose when you are thinking. I was not ready to complicate that." Emma felt her defenses crumbling. "I was scared last night, not of your money, but of what it might mean. That maybe I am not enough for your world." Julian stepped closer, taking her hands. "Emma, I came here to escape that world, to figure out what actually matters. And what matters is this. You, the way I feel when I am with you, that has nothing to do with money." "Promise me something," Emma said. "Promise me you will always be honest, even when it is uncomfortable." "I promise. Can you promise me something too?" "What?" "That you will give this a real chance. That you would not let fear or insecurity convince you we are too different." Emma squeezed his hands. "I promise." They kissed, and everything felt right again. When they broke apart, Marcus was standing in the doorway with a knowing smirk. "Should I come back later or—" "Shut up, Marcus," Emma said, but she was smiling. The following week, Julian left for New York. Emma missed him more than she expected. They texted throughout the day and talked on the phone every night. He told her about meetings and frustrations, about his enormous empty apartment that never felt like home. She told him about difficult customers and new recipes, about the feeling that something was missing when he was not there. On Thursday night, Julian called sounding excited. "I have an idea. What if you came to New York this weekend? I could show you around, take you to this incredible bakery in Brooklyn I think you would love." "I do not know, the bakery. Marcus can handle one weekend, can he not?" Emma bit her lip. She had never left Marcus alone with the bakery, but he was capable and she trusted him. "Okay," she said. "Yes, I will come. Really, really. I will send you the train information. Emma, I cannot wait to see you." That Saturday, Emma took the train to New York, her stomach fluttering with nerves. She had dressed carefully, wanting to fit into Julian's world but still feel like herself. As the train pulled into Penn Station, she felt overwhelmed by the crowds and noise. Then she saw Julian waiting on the platform and everything else faded. He was wearing a leather jacket and jeans, his face lighting up when he spotted her. He crossed to her in long strides and pulled her into a hug, lifting her slightly off the ground. "You are here," he said against her hair. "I am here." Julian took her bag and laced his fingers through hers. "Come on, let me show you my city." They took a cab to his apartment in Tribeca, and Emma tried not to gape at the building's sleek, modern exterior. Inside, the lobby was all marble and glass, with a doorman who greeted Julian by name. His apartment was on the 20th floor, a sprawling space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. The decor was minimalist and expensive, more like a hotel than a home. "This is where you live?" Emma asked. "Unfortunately, I know it is not exactly cozy. It is beautiful, just very different from my place. Your place feels like someone actually lives there. This feels like a showroom." Julian gave her a tour, and Emma noticed there were very few personal touches. Some books, his notebooks on the desk, a single photo of his parents on a shelf. Otherwise, it was impersonal and cold. They spent the day exploring Brooklyn, visiting the bakery Julian had mentioned. Emma talked shop with the owner, a tiny French woman who shared tips on laminating dough. They walked across the Brooklyn Bridge, ate pizza in a neighborhood Julian loved, and watched the sunset from a rooftop bar. "Thank you for coming," Julian said as the sky turned pink and gold. "Having you here makes this place feel different." "Different how?" "Like maybe it could be home if you were in it." Emma's heart skipped. "Julian, sorry, too much. I keep doing that with you, saying what I am feeling without thinking." "No, not too much. I feel it too. This thing between us, it is moving fast." "Does that scare you a little?" "But in a good way." That night, back at his apartment, things shifted. They had been careful, taking things slow, but the weeks of building tension and tonight's intimacy had changed something. When Julian kissed her, it was different. Deeper, more urgent. "Stay tonight," he said against her lips. "Please." Emma nodded, and he led her to his bedroom. They made love slowly, learning each other in new ways. Afterward, lying in his arms, Emma felt completely content. "I am falling in love with you," Julian whispered into the darkness. Emma's breath caught. "I am falling in love with you too." The next day, Julian had to go into the office for a few hours. "I am sorry," he said over breakfast. "I tried to reschedule, but this deal has been in the works for months." "It is okay. I will explore the neighborhood. Take my credit card. Buy whatever you want." "Julian, I have money." "I know, but let me do this. Please." Emma reluctantly agreed, and after Julian left, she ventured out. She walked through Soho, browsing shops and people watching. Eventually, she found herself in a bookstore, wandering through the aisles. In the poetry section, she picked up a collection of Neruda's poems, the same one where she had found the letter. She had almost forgotten about it, caught up in her relationship with Julian. The letter was still in her purse back at the apartment. On impulse, she bought the book, thinking she might give it to Julian. He appreciated poetry, and it felt like a meaningful gift. When she returned to the apartment, Julian was not back yet. Emma made tea and settled on the couch, opening the new book. As she flipped through it, she thought about the letter again. Who had written it? Had they ever found the courage to confess their feelings? She hoped so. Love like that deserved to be spoken. An hour later, Julian came home looking exhausted. "That took longer than expected. How was your day?" "Good. I bought you something." She handed him the book. Julian's expression changed as he looked at the cover. Something flickered across his face, too quick to read. "Neruda," he said. "Thank you. I found a letter in this same collection at my library." A love letter someone wrote but never signed. It was beautiful. Julian went very still. "A letter?" "Yeah. I have been trying to find the owner, but no one has claimed it." Emma pulled out her phone to check if anyone had called. "I should probably just let it go, but it felt important to try." "Can I see it?" Julian's voice was strange. "The letter? Sure, it is in my purse." Emma retrieved the letter and handed it to Julian. He unfolded it, and she watched his face change as he read. He went pale, his jaw tightening. "Julian, what is wrong?" "I wrote this," he said quietly. 3 years ago. I wrote this letter and left it in this exact book at the library in my neighborhood in Manhattan." Emma felt the world tilt. "What?" "I was in love with someone. A woman I saw at the coffee shop every morning. We never spoke beyond pleasantries, but I was captivated by her. I wrote this letter because I could not keep it inside anymore, but I was too afraid to give it to her. So I left it in this book in the library near my apartment, and I donated the book. It felt like releasing the feeling into the universe. But I found it in my town, at my library." Books get circulated between library systems all the time. It must have ended up there. They sat in stunned silence, the weight of this coincidence settling over them. Emma had found Julian's letter, never knowing that it would lead her to him. That the man who wrote those aching words was the same man she was falling in love with. "What happened with her?" Emma asked softly. "The woman you wrote it for." Julian set the letter down carefully. "Nothing. I saw her a few more times and then she stopped coming to that coffee shop. I never learned her name or anything about her. The feeling eventually faded and I convinced myself it was for the best. I threw myself into work and told myself I did not have time for relationships. Until you came to my town. Until I met you, and everything changed." Julian took her hands. "Emma, I know this is strange, but maybe it is not a coincidence. Maybe I was supposed to write that letter so it would find you, so you would go looking for answers and I would come to your bakery and we would find each other." "That is very romantic," Emma said, her eyes stinging with tears. "It is true. I have never felt about anyone the way I feel about you, not even close." Emma kissed him and it felt like coming home. Everything had led to this moment. The letter, the library, the bakery, all of it was threads weaving together into something beautiful. They spent the rest of the weekend wrapped up in each other, talking about the future in ways that felt both scary and inevitable. When Emma returned home Sunday night, she felt changed. This was not a casual relationship. This was real and deep and meant to be. Over the following months, their relationship deepened. Julian split his time between New York and Emma's town, making it work despite the distance. He was handling more business remotely and training a management team to take over daily operations. His goal, he told Emma, was to transition from active CEO to board chairman within a year. That would give him the freedom to live where he wanted and focus on what he actually cared about. Emma's bakery continued to thrive. Julian occasionally helped out, and customers loved seeing the tall, handsome man behind the counter. Marcus joked that they should pay Julian for bringing in so many curious customers. One evening in June, about 6 months into their relationship, Julian took Emma to the park where they had first really talked. They sat on the same bench, watching the same pond. "I have been thinking," Julian said, "about what I want my life to look like. And I want to sell the company. Not immediately, but within the next year. I want to move here permanently. I want to write. And I want to build a life with you." Emma's heart raced. "That is a big decision." "It is the right decision. I have been making choices based on obligation and expectation for years. I want to make choices based on what makes me happy. And you make me happy, Emma. Happier than I have ever been." "I love you," Emma said, the words coming easily now. "I love you too, which is why I want to ask you something important." Julian shifted, and Emma realized with shock that he was kneeling beside the bench, pulling a small box from his pocket. "Emma, I know we have not been together that long, but I also know that I have never been more sure of anything. You are my best friend, my inspiration, my home. Will you marry me?" Emma could not speak. Tears were streaming down her face, but she was smiling, nodding. "Yes," she finally managed. "Yes, yes, yes." Julian slipped the ring onto her finger, a simple band with a single perfect diamond. Then he stood and pulled her into his arms, kissing her while she laughed and cried at the same time. That night, they called everyone they knew to share the news. Emma's friends screamed with excitement. Julian's business partners offered stiff congratulations. Neither of them cared. They had each other, and that was everything. They married 6 months later in a small ceremony at the community center where they had their first date. Emma wore a simple white dress and carried wildflowers. Julian wore a navy suit and could not stop smiling. Marcus was the best man and Rachel was the maid of honor. The guest list was small, just close friends and family who mattered. During their vows, Julian said, "I came to this town trying to find myself, and instead I found you. You showed me what it means to live authentically, to build something meaningful, to love without fear. I promise to spend the rest of my life being worthy of you. Emma said, "You taught me that it is okay to want more, to dream bigger, to open my heart even when it is scary. You make me braver just by loving me. I promise to spend the rest of my life being your partner, your cheerleader, and your best friend." There was not a dry eye in the room. After the wedding, Julian officially transitioned to board chairman of his company, selling majority ownership to a private equity firm. The sale made him significantly wealthier, but more importantly, it freed him. He bought a house just outside town, a beautiful old Victorian with a huge kitchen for Emma and a sunny office for him to write. Emma expanded Sweet Beginnings, hiring more staff and opening a second location. She also started writing her cookbook, with Julian as her dedicated taste tester and photographer. The process was slow, but she was not in a hurry. She had learned that the best things took time. 1 year after their wedding, on a crisp autumn evening, they returned to the library where everything began. Emma had finally taken down her notice about the letter. It was no longer lost. It had found exactly where it belonged. They browsed the poetry section together, and Julian pulled out the Neruda collection, the same one. "Should we leave our own letter?" Emma asked. "For someone else to find. What would we say?" Emma thought about it. "That love finds you when you stop looking. That sometimes the most important things come disguised as accidents. That you should always have the courage to say how you feel because you never know what might happen." "That is perfect," Julian said. "Let's write it together." They found paper and a pen at the circulation desk, and together they composed a new letter. They did not sign it. They simply tucked it into the same book and returned it to the shelf. Dear reader, if you have found this letter, know that you are holding proof of small miracles. This book once held words of love that felt impossible, words that were released into the world without expectation. Those words found their way to exactly the right person and led to something beautiful. If you are searching for love, do not give up. If you have love and are afraid to speak it, be brave. Life is too short for silence. Sometimes the greatest adventures begin with a single page, a single word, a single moment of courage. Whatever you are looking for, we hope you find it. And when you do, hold it close and do not let go. With hope and love from two people who took a chance. As they left the library hand in hand, Emma felt the weight of gratitude. Her life had not turned out the way she planned. It turned out better. She had love, purpose, and partnership with someone who saw her fully and chose her completely. 6 months later, Emma discovered she was pregnant. They had not been trying, but they were not preventing it either. When she told Julian, he picked her up and spun her around, laughing with pure joy. "We are having a baby," he said against her hair. "We are going to be parents." "Are you ready for this?" Emma asked. "With you, I am ready for anything." Their daughter was born on a sunny May morning, small and perfect with dark hair like Julian and Emma's green eyes. They named her Grace because grace was what had brought them together. The grace of a letter finding the right person. The grace of love appearing when least expected. The grace of second chances and new beginnings. Marcus declared himself Uncle Marcus and spoiled Grace shamelessly. Rachel drove over every week to help with the baby, and told anyone who would listen about how Emma had found her love story in a library book. Julian's company thrived under new management, and his first novel, a love story inspired by their relationship, was published to modest but meaningful success. Emma's cookbook came out the same year, with photographs by Julian and recipes that told the story of her life. The dedication read, "For Julian, who taught me that the sweetest things are worth the wait. They built their life together with intention and care. Slow mornings making breakfast as a family. Late nights reading by the fireplace. walks through the park where Julian had proposed. Busy days at the bakery with Grace napping in a portable crib in the office. Quiet moments stolen between the chaos, just the two of them, remembering how it all started. On their 5th anniversary, they returned to the library again. The Neruda collection was still on the shelf. They checked to see if their letter was still inside. It was gone. "Someone found it," Emma said, smiling. "Good," Julian replied. "Maybe it will lead them somewhere wonderful, too." They took Grace home, where Marcus was waiting to babysit so they could have an anniversary dinner. At the restaurant, Julian raised his glass. "To 5 years of marriage, 6 years since we met, and a lifetime ahead of us." "To finding love letters in library books," Emma added. "To everything that led us here." They clinked glasses and drank, and Emma felt the fullness of her happiness. She had spent so many years believing her life was set, that the dreams of youth had passed her by. But life had surprised her. It had given her this beautiful, unexpected love. This partner who challenged her and supported her and made her laugh. This family they had built together. Sometimes, Emma still pulled out that original letter, now framed and hanging in Julian's office. She would read the words and marvel at the journey they had taken, from anonymous confession to the foundation of everything they had become. Asterisk forever yours, though you may never know it. Asterisk, but she did know it now. She knew Julian's love completely, and he knew hers. They had both been brave enough to speak the feelings that mattered, and in doing so, they had created something that would last forever. Years later, when Grace was old enough to understand, they would tell her the story. About the letter her father wrote before he knew her mother existed, about the coincidence that was really fate. About how sometimes love works in mysterious ways, connecting people across time and distance through the unlikeliest of paths. For now, though, Emma was content to live in the present, to bake her bread and raise her daughter and love her husband. To wake up each morning grateful for the twists and turns that had led her here. She had found a love letter in a library book, never expecting it would lead her to a millionaire. But more than the money, more than the success or the security, it had led her to Julian. To partnership and passion, and the kind of love that made ordinary life feel extraordinary. And that was worth more than all the wealth in the world. As Emma drifted to sleep that night, Julian's arm around her and Grace sleeping peacefully in the next room, she thought about all the people who might find letters in library books in the future. All the secret confessions and unnamed longings preserved between pages. She hoped they all found what they were looking for. She hoped they all took the chance when it appeared. She hoped they all learned what she had learned, that love was always worth the risk. Because sometimes a single letter, a single page, a single moment of courage could change everything. And sometimes the love you needed had been waiting for you all along, written in blue ink on aging paper, just waiting to be discovered. That was the magic of it all. The beautiful, impossible, perfect magic that had given her Julian, given her Grace, given her this life she would not trade for anything. Emma closed her eyes and smiled, already dreaming of tomorrow.